The 1989-90 Portland Trailblazers were one of the greatest teams in franchise history. During that season, they went 59-23, setting a franchise record at the time for most wins in a season. They had an outstanding offense that averaged well over 114 points per game, which was the fourth best total in the league and was higher than any team in the Eastern Conference. Thanks to the great play of guys like future Hall of Famer Clyde Drexler and all-defense first-team power forward Buck Williams, the Blazers were a force to be reckoned with as they cruised through the regular season and made it all the way to the NBA Finals, making it to their second NBA Finals in franchise history and their first since 1977. At one point during the season, the Blazers won 9 straight games, and they had 3 separate winning streaks of at least 7 games. It seemed like absolutely nothing could stop the Blazers during this season. That is, everything except for the San Francisco 49ers? As in an NFL team? Yeah, I know that might seem hard to believe, but that's exactly what happened on January 14th, 1990, when the Portland Trailblazers faced their biggest test yet. It wasn't the Spurs, or the Jazz, or the Lakers, or any of those teams, but rather a team in a completely different sport. Because this is the story behind one of the strangest broadcasting controversies in the history of the NBA as it pertained to the NFL, and how the San Francisco 49ers were able to beat out the Portland Trailblazers in their own city. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing and for hyping up this video. And with that in mind, let's talk about how this game right here caused a ripple effect, and how TB didn't stand for Trailblazers, but rather too bad. But before I talk about the actual incident in question, because you're probably wondering how such a thing would even happen today, we need some context to understand what the conference championship schedule is like today, just for a frame of reference, because I can assure you that it was worlds different back then. Today, the conference championship schedule is ridiculously easy to understand. There are 2 conference championships held on that Sunday, with one of them being at 3 o'clock Eastern and the other one being at 6:30 Eastern. The AFC Championship is held on CBS every year, and the NFC Championship is held on Fox every year. And the conference championship games alternate in terms of which one gets the primetime spot, regarded to be the more marquee spot that gets the best ratings. In odd number years, the AFC Championship is the primetime game, and in even number years, the NFC Championship is the primetime game. As an example, if you're watching as of this video releasing in January 2026, the Rams-Seahawks game is the primetime game, because it's an even number year, and the Broncos-Patriots game is the first game, with the AFC and NFC switching time slots next year. Everything is locked in years in advance, both from a date perspective and a time perspective. But back in the day, and in the 20th century, especially the time of this video and this game, in January of 1990, that was not the case. Because instead of the games starting at 3 o'clock and 6:30 Eastern, the games started at 12:30 and 4 o'clock Eastern, starting 2.5 hours earlier than now. You might be wondering why that was the case, and there were a few factors involved in that. Number one, the NFL was the #1 sport in the country, and was easily more popular than everything else in the industry. But television shows still routinely outdrew NFL games, and networks didn't want to mess up their primetime lineup, especially on Sunday night, considered to be one of the best days of the primetime calendar. On Sundays during the 1989-90 television season, 2 of the top 7 programs, along with 3 of the top 13 programs, aired on Sunday nights. Today, football will obliterate everything in its path, but back in the late 80s, this wasn't the case. Heck, Sunday Night Football wasn't even a thing for the entire season during the 1989-90 season. So the idea back then was that Sunday afternoon was for football, but Sunday night was for other things. And number two, the weather could be really bad at night. Back in the 1989 season, the vast majority of the teams played in outdoor, multi-purpose venues. Only a handful of teams, like the Saints, Oilers, Lions, Seahawks, and Vikings, played in dome venues. So there was a high chance that if you were hosting a playoff game, it would be held in the elements. While television revenue was massive back then, gate revenue was also a big chunk of the pie. And the worse the weather is, the less people want to go to the game. Obviously, it's a lot colder at night than it is during the day, because there's no sunlight. So the idea was that if you played games at night, there's a better chance if the weather is too cold, which means fewer people go to the game, which also means that the game could get blacked out within a 75-mile radius, since the NFL was extremely strict with blackout rules back then. Today, blackout rules do not exist, and everyone can watch every game, regardless of how many people show up and are in attendance. But there were multiple instances of playoff games not being shown in the local market, and by extension, not being shown on TV in a really big city. When you combine the weather, the threat of a blackout, and just the landscape of television back then, it made sense for the conference championships to start at 12:30 and 4 o'clock. However, you might notice one small problem with starting the games at 12:30 and 4 o'clock. There's just one teeny tiny thing that the NFL forgot to take into account with this, and that is the fact that the country does not operate on one time zone. The continental United States is comprised of 4 time zones, and quite a few teams play in the Mountain and Pacific time zone, as in time zones 2 and 3 hours behind Eastern time. And this isn't a problem if one team from that time zone hosts the conference championship. You just have that team host at 4 o'clock Eastern time, and have the team in the Eastern time zone or Central time zone host the first game. As an example, if the New York Giants host the NFC Championship and the San Diego Chargers host the AFC Championship, just put the Giants on at 12:30 and the Chargers on at 4. No issues. But if you have 2 teams out west hosting the conference championships, that's a major problem, because obviously you're not starting a game at 9:30 in the morning local time. The players' union would never go for that. There'd be city ordinances and noise things that would have to be worked out, seeing as the stadium lots and the stadium itself open hours before game time. You might not sell as many tickets because of the hassle it would take for fans to get to the game and wake up super early, and it would just be a nightmare. There's a reason why you never see the San Francisco 49ers hosting a game at their stadium in the 1 o'clock Eastern window. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened in January of 1990 during the playoffs. Because in one corner, you had the Denver Broncos getting the number 1 seed in the AFC and winning their divisional round game against the Pittsburgh Steelers to take on the Cleveland Browns at Mile High Stadium in the AFC Championship. And in the other corner, you had this game right here that you've been watching this entire time, which becomes the center of the controversy, with the San Francisco 49ers getting the number 1 seed in the NFC and winning their divisional round game against the Minnesota Vikings to take on the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC Championship. For what it's worth, as you're watching this game right here, it's not going to come as any surprise to you that the Niners steamrolled the Rams. The 1989 49ers are one of the greatest teams of all time, and they cruised through the postseason, outscoring their opponents 126-26, outscoring their opponents by 100 points, or 5 possessions per game. And they took advantage of the Rams by winning 30-3 in a game where they allowed just 9 first downs, held onto the ball for 40 out of a possible 60 minutes, and outgained the Rams 442-156 in total yardage. all while future Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Montana had one of his best days ever as a pro, going 26 for 30, completing 87% of his passes for 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 125.3. And all while Rams quarterback Jim Everett had one of his worst days ever as a pro, completing just 44% of his passes with no touchdowns, 3 picks, and a passer rating of 20.7, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. But what do they do about this game right here and the Broncos-Browns game, seeing as both games took place out west? Well, the NFL did the logical thing and just pushed the start time of each game back 1 hour. Because the Broncos were in the Mountain Time zone, pushing the game back to 1:30 Eastern would mean an 11:30 kickoff local time instead of a 10:30 kickoff. And an 11:30 kickoff is no different than a conference championship starting in the Central Time Zone. So that's not an issue. And now, the 49ers game would kick off at 5 o'clock Eastern or 2 o'clock local time. So you might be wondering, what the heck is the controversy here? Surely pushing the games back an hour couldn't have caused chaos, right? Well, it didn't cause chaos for the NFL. It was pretty ho-hum and a pretty logical decision. But it caused a lot of chaos for the NBA, specifically this team right here, the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers had a contract to air certain games locally on CBS, and the Blazers had a game scheduled in New Jersey for 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Keep in mind that if a game was in Portland, changing the time of the game would probably be a lot easier. But because the game was on the road and changing the time would mean a super late start on the East Coast, screwing over Nets fans, not so much. And if everything was normal in the NFL, then this wouldn't be an issue. The NFC Championship would be held at 4 o'clock Eastern, and when the game is done, CBS switches its coverage in Portland to the Blazers-Nets game, tipping off at 7 o'clock Eastern. But because the NFC Championship, which was on CBS, because every NFC game was on CBS, was now starting at 5 o'clock Eastern and wouldn't be done until 8 o'clock at the earliest, we had a problem. Because now, the NFC Championship was overlapping with the Blazers-Nets game. And this meant that something had to give. That something? The Blazers lost out. The Blazers game would have to be shown not live, but on tape delay. Even though the game was starting at 7 o'clock Eastern, it was only going to be shown in Portland at 8:30 Eastern, or 5:30 local time. It was on a 90-minute tape delay. Now, it's not like NBA fans weren't used to tape delays. Back in the 1970s, when the NBA's popularity was virtually non-existent before David Stern became commissioner, the NBA Finals routinely aired on tape delay, airing late in the night. But with a local team and a local audience, and in an era where the NBA was starting to rise in popularity, insane. And again, if the game was in Portland, I'm sure you could just push the tip-off time back 2 hours and start the game later. But time zones threw a wrench in everyone's plans, both with the NFL having to push the time of the game back, and the NBA having no way to air the game between the Blazers and the Nets live in Portland. And to the shock of no one, the NFL won out. It's not the first time that the NFL was able to beat out the NBA when it came to an interference on Conference Championship weekend. You can learn more about another incident involving the Washington Bullets that decade by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But it's just another reminder that the NFL is king and can dictate whatever schedule they want, and other leagues have to abide by it, and there's nothing that they can do about it whatsoever. The Blazers ended up beating the Nets 99-90. There's no footage of the game, although there is somehow footage of the game the Blazers played against the Nets earlier in the year, which is what you've been watching this entire time. With the win by the Blazers, they improved their record to 25-11, making them one of the best teams in the NBA, while the Nets dropped to 11-25, making them one of the worst teams in the league in what was a disastrous season for them in more ways than one. But even though the Blazers won on the court on this day, they lost off of it, because Blazer fans who wanted to find out how their team did had to wait a little bit longer than originally expected. Plus, watching games on tape delay versus watching them live, it's obviously not the same thing. Because on this day in January of 1990, the 49ers advanced to the Super Bowl and not only knocked out the Rams, but knocked out the Blazers in the process. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.